Hey, all you Arizona lovers. This is the Finding Arizona podcast. I'm your host, Jose.
And I'm your producer, Brittany.
And here at Finding Arizona Podcast, we collect the local stories of all entrepreneurs and from around the valley. So join us at findingarizonapodcast.com, where you can hear every episode and see it as well at
YouTube. Like, subscribe, and comment below who you want to see next on our show. And when you're ready to start your podcast, you found the right spot. Found House, your next podcast production company.
Now, let's get back to the show. Score big with SeatGeek. Whether it's concerts, sports, or live events, SeatGeek has you covered. Use code FindingArizona to get a fantastic $20 discount on your SeatGeek tickets. Catch your favorite live events hassle-free with extra savings. Visit SeatGeek.com and make every experience unforgettable. 2, 1. Welcome back, everybody, to the Finding Arizona podcast. I'm your host, Jose. As always, we bring in very special guests every week. And as you can see, if you're watching the video, we've brought in two very special someones. I would love to introduce Dr. John Robinson and Dr. Cristina Romero-Bosch. Please, thank you both for coming in today.
Thank you so much for having us.
We're very excited to be here. So thank you.
I was talking to both of you off air for a little bit, and it seems like you are both very unique, interesting, thorough people that love not only the storytelling that we provide here, but also just an overall a hunger for knowledge, a hunger for fascination, something to dive deep into. So that's what we're going to get into a little bit today. But I'm going to kick it off with John. Why don't you introduce yourself and also what we're going to be discussing a little bit, and then we'll move to Cristina and get her origin story as well.
Good.
So my name is Dr. John Robinson. I would say John A. Robinson because John Robinson is kind of pretty common. So I put the A in there just to help people understand. If you Google John Robinson, Dr. John Robinson, you'll find a lot of them. I've been practicing here in Arizona for the past 18 years, focusing on longevity medicine, wellness medicine, hormone replacement therapy, advanced hormone replacement therapy. We do a lot with just hormones in general, so thyroid and adrenal health and stress management and insulin and blood sugar control and weight. So that's what I've been focusing on now, again, the past 18 years. And actually, we met in medical school right here in Arizona. So awesome. the Sonoran University was called the Southwest College of Naturopathic Medicine, but it's now has university status. So it's Sonoran University. Nice. It's right there on Broadway and the 101. And that's where we met. And so we've just been involved. I've personally been involved in wellness for a long time. And then prior to that, for me, I was doing massage therapy and got a job prior to actually getting my license with massage at the spa at Camelback Inn. So Marriott's Camelback Inn down there on Camelback in Lincoln, and that really sparked the whole thing for me. So I've been in Arizona for a lot of years, and that's really what sparked wellness for me, because I discovered this job kind of sitting around doing nothing in 1991. And that was right after high school. I wasn't sure what I was going to do in terms of college or what. Got this job, and that's opened me up to this idea of wellness. And that was kind of the beginning, really. I mean, wellness had been around, but it was just the beginning of the spa world and all that in the late 80s, early 90s. Again, I became a massage therapist. I did that for 14 years. And then during that time also, I became a founding member of PIMA, the Phoenix Institute of Herbal Medicine and Acupuncture. It's one of the premier first master's level acupuncture, traditional Chinese medicine acupuncture school in Arizona. I was part of the founding class and that whole thing. And from there, I got more interested specifically in naturopathic medicine. And really the traditions behind all of that. And that's what led me ultimately to the school that's here in Arizona. And again, that's where we met. And we've been, again, practicing 18 years. And for us, it wound up, I'm speaking for her at the moment, but it's really focused in and around hormones and what that really means and sort of the change in your wellness of what you can achieve with really, really good hormone replacement therapy. But overall, it's about longevity. It's about living well. We inevitably get into a lot of sexual wellness, so we work with patients that way as well. So it's a very holistic approach to somebody's overall wellness. And that's what I've been doing.
Awesome. Thank you for divulging all of that information. I really do appreciate it. I think having a grasp of kind of this origin and where you're coming from is really important to kind of show where the roots of the tree come from. So I'm going to switch over. Dr. Cristina, please let us know a little bit of your origin story just before meeting this handsome gentleman sitting next to you.
Great. Thank you. Unlike John, my name is Cristina Romero-Bosch, and there aren't, I think, any others out there.
a little seldom less of those names.
It's a very, I'd say, special last name. Although I go by Dr. Bosch, so you may see my name written out there in publications, just from simplicity's sake.
Yeah.
There's many Dr. Bosches in my family, sister, dad, etc. I come from the Northeast, but I was born in Spain. My parents are Cuban refugees. So when you talk about tradition and culture and the anecdotal evidence that I think shapes some of the best medical tomes, or maybe I should say healing tomes in human history, I think about how my mom would say that she had a doctor when she was a little girl in Cuba, and she was getting frequent infections, and that the doctor prescribed for her a week at the beach. And my mom would always say, ever since then, I've been looking for a doctor that prescribes a week at the beach. And I say that because really that philosophy that my parents as physicians, conventional physicians, but ones that shaped my upbringing through the idea of fresh air, good homemade food, less invasive therapies, talking, it was very like foundational wellness principles to live a well-lived life.
Yeah.
Fast forward into the future, John and I meet in med school, and we fell in love. I was very adamant about returning to the Northeast because that's where my family lived.
Yeah.
I went up there. I did my residency at Yale in integrative medicine. And I was like, I'm not coming back to Arizona, but
yeah, right.
Sometimes the universe convenes in your favor and the stars aligned, and came back out, and John and I got married, and I started my own practice.
Nice.
And then he and I joined forces about 10 years ago.
Yeah, 10 now.
We started the Hormone Zone. When I was doing my residency at Yale, I thought I was going to focus on women's medicine, specifically OB, gynecology. I loved obstetrics, but I realized that what I really enjoyed was helping women with conception, with conceiving, and any of the problems that women will feel after giving birth. So what I discovered through my training was that what I really enjoyed was the idea of hormonal wellness and longevity.
Yes.
It was less about the actual delivery part and more about keeping moms healthy, and how when you are positively impacting the female, you have an opportunity to affect generational health. Because a lot of times the mom's making the decisions at home for what's being eaten and et cetera. So that's how we got to where we are.
I think it's beautiful that you guys have found yourselves together in this kind of really interesting intersection in the kind of diagram of your own lives of, you could have gone each in a very interesting direction, but to find yourselves here together in this unified front, it is truly remarkable. I think about my own journey here in that my wife helps me out a lot with this podcast, but we both had very different backgrounds, her coming from San Diego and me coming here from just north of in the reservation. But I also like to kind of interject my own life into these conversations because I feel like there's a lot I can extract from my own ways of like going through and experiencing parenthood in our pregnancy, and just the fact that we were very much in a kind of right moment, right time. Towards the end of the pandemic, she told me that she was pregnant, and I was very thrown for like, wow, this is exciting news. This is something that we've kind of worked ourselves into this situation, got married, and it was very like a whirlwind of like decision making, going through what we not only eat, but also just like what we want to bring into the world and what he should have when he first is in with our home and our animals. We have pets. How do we go? Like all these different decision factors um, accumulate, and we felt like it was important to get ahead of that. She more than anything, because she is very much that kind of individual, very type A, wants structure, wants to have everything kind of laid out so that she has a game plan for it all. But that being said, I would also kind of just go into Dr. John. I would love to understand from the perspective of your counterpart here. She kind of had a family dynamic of health and wellness, people with extensive background or did the journey essentially to the PhD. You seem like you have a different kind of outlook. I don't know if there's any family members that were encouraging you or if there was anyone that you could seek help from in your own family. I would love to understand, like, where was that in, like, kind of like you stumbled upon this and then you were like that aha moment of like, I can do this.
Yeah. That is a good question. My mother's one of my biggest fans. I can certainly say that.
Awesome.
And so I would say that, she was always encouraging of me. But in terms of having a direct role model regarding even as something as simple as college, that wasn't anything that I grew up with. Yeah. But what I did grow up with was service. Yes. And being having service towards others. And certainly my extended family, they were all in business in some way, and all of it was sort of service oriented. So I always knew that it was going to be, I was going to serve people in some way. So I always knew that. I didn't exactly know what that meant, but as I really do think that the first aha moment it was actually the year that we hit 122 degrees in Arizona. And for those from Arizona, they might remember that. And so that whole week after it was still like 115 and above. Yeah. So I remember I didn't have a job at the time. I was not long out of high school. And I had a friend say, come and work at the spa at Camelback Inn.
Yeah.
And once I got that job and I was around, it was a lot of fun. Young kid, around all that. It was just a lot of fun, but it was about wellness. It was about this whole world of that. And so that was a big aha moment for me because I started focusing on my own wellness. And because I'm around all of that and it was peaceful and tranquil and it was a way to even start to heal for myself. So yeah, that was the first aha moment. But the big aha moment was fast forward and I was in acupuncture school and I had one of my teachers said to me, she asked me some kind of clinical question about some imaginary patient concept.
Yeah.
And I was answering some questions and I was answering this question. And then she asked me kind of a hard question and then said, so what are you going to do now, doctor? And she said doctor to me. And it was the first time anybody had ever said that. And it was kind of at that moment I realized not only did it sound kind of cool, I thought, okay,
yeah.
But what really it was about was that because she was asking me questions about what difficult decision was I going to not only make, but be responsible for with this human.
Yeah.
And that's when I went, that's what I want to do. Because not everybody wants to do that in medicine. And there's a lot of people that talk about health out there and not all of them that talk about health are a doctor. And there's a difference because we really are taking someone's health and their life perhaps in your hands. It's a sacred responsibility.
Absolutely.
And I saw it there at that moment. And I realized that that's what really inspired me just about life in general. That's what I wanted to make those difficult decisions for people and have that really high level of responsibility. Yeah. And then it led from there.
Awesome. That's incredible. And it means so much that you have such a good foundation and good goals for, I guess, just for your patients to have this level of like understanding of like, oh, Dr. John's belief in what he's looking to try and help it stems from somewhere. And so I love hearing those types of things. Dr. Cristina, I would love to just understand that as you were approaching the kind of like past the education part and now moving forward into residency and moving forward past that, your relationship with John here, like, was there a lot of conversation about what you guys do together? And then leading up, what were the conversations like of we should have this practice together? Like, why are we waiting? Like, what made us wait this long? Like, what those types of, I would love to hear, because I know for my wife, it is definitely when she first, it was kind of the story of our relationship. When she first met me, I couldn't really go out on dates on weekends because I was recording and editing and doing all the stuff for the podcast back then. And I just had to admit and have a talk with her, like communicate, like, this is what I'm doing. I'm a little embarrassed just because it's still relatively new, but she, like a good partner, she was very much like encouraging, and she listened to all the episodes. She actually sat down with me and said, I want to help you. I want to be a part of this. So it was really, for us, it was like the moment for our relationship to grow from there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. I can resonate with that. Arizona, first of all, is just a much easier place, especially compared to 20 years ago. It's a much easier place to practice naturopathic medicine, to really be a physician here. And in Connecticut, my training was so strong, and I walked out of that being so capable, I felt, with lots of learning that lies ahead. Medicine is the practice of medicine, right? So in theory, you're always learning.
Yes.
But I was very limited. I was very limited because the scope of practice in the Northeast is more limited, and also because the mentality of the patient base there back then especially was really not as welcoming to these perhaps functional alternative mindsets, and really that sense of taking responsibility for your health.
Yeah.
So from just a business perspective, it made a lot of sense that when I was done with my residency, I said, I want to start my own practice. Mm-hmm. I'm going to come to Arizona. Number one, because John is here. And number two, professionally, this place actually allowed me to do everything I knew I can do. So that was a very strong pull.
Yes.
And John and I really are we're like a think tank among ourselves, constantly bouncing ideas off of each other, constantly dissecting patient cases. We think of it the same way. The human body is brilliant, and we say, okay, here's this person before us with these symptoms, these problems, let's say. It's like you're having a play date with a puzzle. I use this analogy a lot. Okay. And the puzzle that you're working on is one of those puzzles that's like a million pieces that all look the same.
Yeah.
You really have to like work through it with patience, but you have to let the picture speak to you.
Yeah.
Not everyone sees it that way. A lot of people see medicine as something where they're supposed to come in and forcefully intervene. Philosophically, we've always been so aligned on how we want to help bring about wellness or guide a person to bring about wellness.
Yeah.
And it was always very easy. We've always been wonderful co-workers together. And that intellectual sparring and that exchange of ideas, I would say, was probably our first date. It was great. It was the way our romantic relationship built, was really on this like philosophical and intellectual level.
And an appreciation, a shared appreciation with medicine and the philosophy, all of these things. She's got a beautiful mind, and I definitely fell in love with that.
That's wonderful.
From there, we just developed protocols that we stamped both our names on, and we said, that's it, let's do this together. And it's been a wonderful, really wonderful opportunity.
Yeah, I think you asked too, initially, right out of school for both of us, she started after she came back from Connecticut, started her own practice. And nice. I was already right out of school. I had started with a large practice that's here in Arizona that focuses on hormone replacement therapy. Yeah. So I was there and sort of solid already. So I stayed there, developed my expertise there while she was building her practice and her level of expertise. We, of course, were collaborating the whole time, but hadn't fully joined forces until 2015.
Yeah, that's incredible, though, that you, again, this level of love and passion between yourselves, but also the things that you love to do. It's just remarkable what can be accomplished when two minds who genuinely care come together and work on things that will help individuals one by one, but also a larger community as a whole, and especially health and wellness. You easily can make big strides when you have more than one mind working on it.
Yeah, sure.
It's really great.
Lightens the load, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'd love to ask now, like, because you guys brought up this kind of key thing, and it kind of leads into what's going on now and where you guys are at with your careers. You brought up the idea of this being an actual Arizona itself being a very open enough opportunity with the clientele. And now I'd like to ask from your own perspectives, each of you, what makes Arizona so, I guess, intriguing in the sense that like this level of health and wellness kind of bleeds into almost a level of like, I mean, most people would think Sedona is that place of like, really deep health and wellness coming out of that area. And what people go there to do is the actual health and wellness portion. A lot of them go hiking, or, they go to those different areas where there's the vortexes. And so I'd love to, from your own perspectives, like, why do you think in itself this state has become this kind of mecca for that?
Yeah, let me start off answering that. The desert has secrets.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
People go to the desert to figure themselves out, and it's an oasis. It's a place where you can really delve into yourself. You wander into the desert. You go into the desert. So I don't know if that's maybe some of what it is. And obviously it's very beautiful here. And I think the weather, whenever you have a certain type of weather that has so much sunshine and all of that, and we could almost say that to some degree with California, it brings in a certain kind of ability to care about health. But Arizona is unique in that sense. There's energy here.
Yeah.
Whether this is tribal energy and that sort of history, I think it plays a huge amount into it. Again, with Grand Canyon, you're saying here with Sedona, I mean, there's actual vortexes. I mean, there's only so many vortexes literally in the world, and one of them centralized right here in Arizona. So there's something very special and mystical about Arizona that way. But just, I think practically, again, people travel to a dry climate, what people have done for a century or more coming to Arizona. So I think it lends itself that way. But what wound up uniquely happening, back to naturopathic medicine, that naturopathic medicine has really had to fight for its rights, literally, in terms of existence as place on the map.
Yeah.
And not every state shares the same level of licensing freedoms and laws that they have here for naturopathic medicine. And so early on, back in I think it was in the mid-ish 90s, there was a group of naturopathic doctors from other areas that kind of came in and really pushed excellent legislation forward that created the scope of practice for naturopathic medicine.
Nice.
And so that really has a huge part to do with it then too. So in other words, they established a culture through the profession to allow for people to really experience this type of medicine in a broad way, the way it's supposed to be, or as what Cristina just said, just practicing as a physician, because we believe that is just the way medicine should be. It's called naturopathic medicine, I guess, but it ultimately should be just the way you practice medicine.
I would add to that. I think Arizona is just a very special state. I think that, and it has changed a lot, of course, we know, since the pandemic. Even though I've lived here for 20 some years, I still always say, well, I'm not an original Arizonian. And there is a difference. There is a difference to the mentality of the original Arizona people that settled it, or the original settlers, whatever the combination. There's such a respect for nature. There's such a respect for freedom, for autonomy. And when you respect freedom and you respect autonomy, what you essentially are saying is that you take responsibility for your behavior.
Yes.
And when you're practicing medicine, and looking for longevity, you need a patient that is saying, I'm taking responsibility for my behavior. I will be the owner of my decisions. I will make those difficult decisions to head towards the discomfort of change.
Yes.
And live a different life. And the practical aspects of it, like the licensing, I think that was molded by the people that were here that said, this is important. People deserve the right to choose. People deserve freedom. People deserve religious exemption or personal exemption, philosophical exemption from vaccines if they so choose. And people deserve the right to say, if they want to treat in a conventional mind, or if they want to treat, I would say, in a traditional mind. I wouldn't even say alternative. I would say our medicine is much more traditional than anything else. Arizona has always been a very special place in the fact that it's been a home for those thinkers.
Yeah, a little bit of Wild West there. A little bit of Wild West.
Yeah.
That is, I think, helped with what we're talking about here.
And coming from Jersey, that was greatly appreciated.
I love, again, I've always said that this place is a very unique in that I think one of the biggest things that has come out of, from my own perspective, is just the melting pot. Like you said, you have different, like from natives who have been here for long periods of times to settlers to snowbirds in the more recent vernacular. It is a very melting pot place where even in the government portion of it, it's like they know that this is a diverse group of individuals who've come together in this one area that are striking out to try different things, try to live a better life. Like you said, the sun factor of like having 6 months to 8 months out of the year where it's beautiful weather. And you have like, it's just, again, it's this very much a group of just a lot of different factors that make this place so uniquely visitable and livable that I have always loved about it. I think, like you said, you hit it on the head. It's like having that understanding of responsibility, of taking care of yourself, taking care of the world around you, understanding what your effect on what you do on an everyday basis, and you have control of those factors, and you want to do the right thing. I think is definitely something that makes this place really, really incredible. And I find that the population growth, the spike that has happened in the recent years, is just a testament to not only the culture, what's going on, or what's being invested here for the future, and so much more. So I'm kind of biased. I love this place. I love growing up here. I love being here. So I have always wanted to know from the other hand what others feel like and what they've grown to love about being here. So I appreciate you guys letting me know about that. So I will ask this because we are now getting into a little bit of understanding your business at hand. What expectations new clients can find with meeting each of you individually, or what they might be coming to you? What's something that is expected when meeting you for the first time? Is there something that people should be on the lookout, or just something that you guys provide that you feel like you're uniquely suited to?
Well, what somebody would experience, right off the bat, is that we're going to meet the patient where they're at. We're going to meet them where they're at. And, how we define medicine's anything that helps you to understand a little bit more about yourself. That's what medicine is.
Yes.
And there's different ways to sort of get to that end. So a patient's going to come in and they're going to meet us on that level.
Yeah.
To where we can really figure things out, and we're going to be caring about the approach. The first question I always say to a patient every day is, how you doing? Because that's the regular question. Everyone's fine. And then the next question is, how are you feeling? How are you feeling? And that's and that kind of brings it right into them and what it is they need at that moment. And so we're very, it's a focused performance, trying to align exactly what somebody's going to need at that moment. Then from there, and then go through the usual process of digging in and understanding the basics of medicine for them. And we'll go through lab work, and we do all kinds of in-depth analysis. But the main thing is you've got to have a connection with that human right there. And that's where they have to have that trust. And we go out of our way to really establish that.
That's awesome.
I would say that to the second part of your question with what makes us particularly unique is that we have this incredible ability to match truly cutting edge, because I would say the Hormone Zone has been really a cutting edge longevity medicine practice, if not the, right? The leader in the Valley in what is referred to as anti-aging medicine or longevity medicine.
Yeah.
And even though we're so scientific and so technological and so, again, cutting edge, we're matching it with this idea that if someone is interested in longevity, what they're really interested in is enjoying their life and living it well.
Yes.
And the only way you can identify the keys that prevent someone from living well are through conversation and relationship building.
It's relationship medicine.
So that's one of the things that we do and that our associate physicians, I mean, when we're bringing people into the practice, they have to be people that share that philosophy of, this is number one for as cliche as it is this your passion? Are you doing this because you want to be doing this? Because to be a healer, you have to be willing to give of yourself. That's number one. And then number two is, what are you going to do to help disarm a person, no matter where they are, so that they can share with you their concerns, and maybe some of those concerns they're not even aware that they're harboring.
Yeah.
So once you do that and you match it with the greatest technology in medicine, you've got wonderful healing.
I love that. I love that you guys have just really kind of catered to the individual and really wanting to allow them to trust you, to let themselves go a little bit, put down the defensive so that they can be treated at very much the root of the issue rather than trying to fix the symptoms that there results from them. And so that is something that I've always found most intriguing, because I myself believe that, like, my mentality of it is like every little bit that you do to positively change yourself counts. Like, you know, everything from like just being able to go outside for a walk and enjoy the sunlight and sometimes for me, it's like, you know, I love more of a cardio factor. So I like to go for jogs and runs, and I try and make myself at least sweat a little, like every day, try to get a little bit of a sweat, because to me, I feel better mentally and physically afterwards, just from the, you know, you have a long day, can run it out, get the everything that's inside chemically, you know, feels better after you've exerted some energy and exerted, you know, some sweated out a little equity. But again, I do that because to me, the ultimate result is my child gets a better father, more present father. And that to me is my everlasting investment, is that as long as I'm healthy, I feel better. The longer I can be there for him, the longer I want to, you know, that's where that stems from. And whatever I can do, the small little things from eating better, knowing something a little bit more about, you know, my own health and wellness, and doing those and instilling those into my everyday, I feel like that all counts towards that ultimate pillar of health and wellness. And there are things maybe I may be lacking but I will definitely take the time, if it becomes a inhibiting factor, to go out and seek understanding from those who are more intelligent about that kind of thing, and seek out help. So that's ultimately where I'm coming from today. I do find it interesting, the longevity aspect, just because I think a lot of human factor is about avoidance of the last part of your life, the avoidance of death, and just wanting to live that much longer. For you guys, and it may sound a little bit morbid, but I think that it's ultimately a thing that we kind of all ask ourselves at the end of it. Do you guys think about death? Do you guys think about this common thing that comes across a lot of our lifetime, whether it's experiencing it or just kind of thinking about it? But I would love to just kind of like what that is ultimately for you guys. Like, is there something that helps you, I don't even know, alleviate the anxiety behind it or anything like that?
I think the best way to deal with life is to accept that you're going to die.
Mm-hmm.
And that might, again, sound a little morbid, but
Yeah.
it's upon that first moment where people start to just have that acceptance that it's the fact, then it allows you to truly live.
Mm-hmm.
So for Cristina and I, and this is why we say that the well-lived life, we're calling it's longevity medicine. That's the current term. We've been in this for 18 years. So again, anti-aging medicine, age management medicine, functional medicine, naturopathic medicine. It's got a lot of different names. Now longevity medicine, but it's all
call it living.
It's living. It's living a well-lived life, to not just extend the number of years, but to extend the quality of those years. And it is true that in the last, let's say, 1/4 or so of the standard lifespan, that people always aren't well.
Mm-hmm.
That's really what we want to extend. So we want to extend that opportunity to people to live a well-lived life while they're here, to the best of their possibility, with just relationship medicine, as we're saying here, and also the cutting edge technology, because it is possible to live well, live completely, and live longer, well.
Yeah. So you said two things that I think are really worth repeating. One of them was this notion of treating the cause. Mm-hmm. It's one of the tenets of naturopathic medicine. And it's one of the ways one can approach death with a positive mindset. Mm-hmm. The second thing was this idea of an accumulation of good choices. You had said that your wife, upon learning that you were both going to have a baby, knowing that the son was going to be born, that you started thinking about the little decisions that ultimately accumulate into the life that you're living. Yeah. I think part of the reason why you both did that, to answer your question about death, is because once we become parents, how we live and how long we live and how well we live is that much more important. We don't want to be a burden to others. I always say that I'm very comfortable with the idea of myself dying. I have a very strong Catholic belief. I have very strong faith, and I believe in life after death, and I believe I'm going to heaven. That's that's the way I see it. What I always worry about death is not so much for the person passing on, it's for the people they leave behind. That's really where most of the pain for death comes.
Yes.
So when I think about that, I think, am I honoring the dreams that I had as a little girl by living a good life?
Yeah.
When the time comes for me to pass, am I holding regrets, or did I live well? And am I moving on knowing that my children have had a strong example and that they will be living a beautiful life even after John and I aren't here?
Yeah.
So that would be my relationship with death, knowing that we focus so much on the present.
That's how you minimize. Focusing on the present is really how you minimize those regrets. My mentor, actually, that's what he says. He's there to kind of help guide you to have less regrets. What happens when you are, older and you're in the rocking chair? Did you live the best life you could, and minimize your regrets?
Yeah, and I'm very much in that zone of like trying to be as present as possible. I'm actually, if this book over here that's sitting, is called The Daily Dad, and it's a bunch of mantras, meditations, and stories about parenthood, not just fatherhood, but it's called The Daily Dad because the guy who wrote it is a dad. But essentially it is a litany of just stories of 365 of them. So it's basically a day, a page of reading those kind of meditations, so that, they just associate yourself into those different elements of parenthood that you can recall from not only your own childhood, but also what you're going through on the daily if you are a parent. So it is very much I always say it's definitely a fun read for me, because you get something different every day that you turn the page, or every day that you're going through it. It is uniquely something that allows me to present myself in that I'm reading something at the end of the day, reflecting on my day, but also it's also something like as a reminder. I know I'm going to read this at the end of the day, so I should stay present now and be in the moment now with my son and with my family. So it's definitely an element that allows me to trigger that part of my brain. But I do say that because, again, I love that you guys have allowed me to ask these kind of questions of you, because it is something of a factor of like what you deal with on the daily is something that also maybe your own patients, your own viewers, and your own family would love to understand from your perspective. I'm sure you would love, you're fine with talking to them, but again, as someone who might be on the fence about meeting you or on the fence about going to a naturopathic medicine route, that is something that allows people to draw down their defenses and be like, oh, okay, that's what they think. I kind of feel the same way. Let me take the step and move forward with this undecisive decision and go forward with that. So thank you again, both of you, for sharing that. As we talked a little bit further about this coming from one perspective, also allowing technology, the high tech value, factor of it. I love being in the weeds. I love understanding it. What's new, what things are coming down the pipeline, because I'm just so interested in just, again, that presentness, but it's also new technologies coming out every day. What excites you about your own careers or just where you're at now for the future? What gives you kind of this push, this motivation to want to continue on and help those who come to you as patients?
I've been doing this now, wellness, 32 years, whatever it's been, 33 years. And lately, this sort of national awareness of health and hormones, and we're hearing there's been more of an acceptance even to hormone therapy, particularly for women. And there was a lot of pushback for women being able to have access to hormones. There's this newfound resurgence and awareness, and I've never seen it to this extent.
Yeah.
And so right at the moment, I got to say, I'm very happy because I know that's going to bridge into the future, that there's a shift in consciousness. And I don't even think it's just in this country. I can certainly say this country, but I think even worldwide, I think COVID really shocked people awake in certain ways and went, whoa, wait, this is really bad. This could have been really bad. Let's do something about my health. That was the first sort of shift of it. And now, fast forward 5 years later, people they're more awake to understanding that a lot of the way our food is, a lot of the way traditional conventional medicine has not really served us as well as it otherwise could. And people are, okay, how do we figure this out? And back to what Cristina said, how do I take more responsibility? Let's get down to the nitty gritty of causal things and taking care of myself and taking responsibility. That's to me, to us, I think it's a dream to know that people really want to collectively think about taking responsibility. It's what you were saying before about you had your why, and your why was your son, and you want to be there for your son, for your family. That is fantastic, because that's about the caregiver. Yeah. That's the other thing. People want to, if they're deciding to come in, particularly it's men too, but particularly women, they're caregivers. They're giving towards other people. And the irony of the caregivers, they often don't take care of themselves.
Yes.
When you're on a plane and they tell you when the mask drops down,
take care of yourself first.
Yourself first, then you take care of your kid or your spouse or whatever sitting next to you. So you got to take care of you, and then you can be the best you can be for the others around you that you love and care about.
Yes.
So
again, it's just all those different things that kind of always are on your mind, and just retelling you this kind of universal truth of like, you have to come first before you can fill someone else's cup. And I think that is definitely something that I'm reminded of on the daily. And I try my best to, again, tell myself your little choices of like what you eat, what you do, what you can contribute, all those little things are helping manage and make better you being as a father, you being as a parent, you being as a husband, you being as a worker, and all of those things will allow you to continue forward. So I also want to just bring up the fact that I love our conversation today. And I want to remind everyone that these two are actual podcasters. They have their own podcast. So I would be remiss I want to hear what you guys have, like what made you decide to do podcasts, but also what gives you the motivation, or no, actually let me ask this. What excites you for the podcast element as you guys, you've been doing this on the regular as doctors, and why podcasting is such a important factor in what you do.
The podcast, which I have to say, and I probably shouldn't admit this out loud other than to my husband, I had never heard a podcast in my entire life.
Totally fine.
I didn't even know how one finds a podcast. Never stop learning, guys. Never stop learning.
Yep.
But we have always said how getting in front of a larger audience has always been it's almost like the sense of urgency. Like, okay, we're getting older. We've been well into our career now. We've done a great job working with people one-on-one, but how many more people can we impact before the game is over? Before life really takes us into our golden age. You start feeling a greater sense of urgency and a greater sense of awareness when you have this mission, when you have this calling, and you're limited because you do one-on-one patient care. We've always been avid speakers, avid educators,
authors.
We've written books. We've written blogs. Like, we've always been like, how many people can we help drop a pearl of wisdom that's implementable in their daily life so that they can live better? And then suddenly the podcast world got involved. Not so suddenly, but for me, it was very sudden.
Yes.
Like, wow, this is this outlet that has the potential to come across as many people as possible, essentially for free. And that was just so exciting. It felt like this whole new world had been opened for us, and being able to do it together. It's just been great. We're really enjoying it, right?
And that's, very much so. And that's probably the biggest thing. You say the other reason why is because we like it. We like doing this. We like talking about it. We like being together. We always say we feel like it's like kind of like a date.
Romance for us.
I love that.
We hang out together.
And we've been meeting a lot of hosts that are just like all over the country. And so like, wow, there's so many like-minded people from different paths. Not everyone's a physician. And yet we all have this incredible connection on how we see the world and how we live our lives. And that's just been very rewarding.
I think I'm absolutely sure that you guys are making a very big impact, especially I was talking to John, and I was really, the idea of consistency is definitely a factor that comes into this as a whole. And if you can get your head and wrap your mind around being as consistent as you guys want to be, there's definitely going to be a culture and a community that comes from this, because at the end of the day, it's those patients that are like, okay, they also have a podcast that comes out on a routinely basis. This day, this time, I'm going to make sure that I'm listening it. And some of the time, most factors, it's like during those moments of like implementation of your routine base, and meaning that you're doing the dishes, you're doing the laundry, you're doing something that doesn't require your mind to be so much on, and you can be able to listen to something. That is something that a lot of people use that time for podcasting, is to catch up with some of their favorites. And once you start building your community, once you start building your group of individuals who are fans, you really do understand that they come back on that time, because it is it's built into their routines. So when they go do the laundry on Saturday, they're like, oh, I got to also listen to my podcast. Let me turn it on to make sure that it's the new one. And so I always say, it's like, once you get that going, it is so much fun, because some of those people become even super fans. They want to chime in and give their opinion. There will be those who just want to support you in whatever the endeavor that you do. So it's like, it comes and it stems and it grows. I always say too, because like you brought up, John, you have other outside factors of guests, other hosts who promote you. And it is definitely it's a smorgasbord of like, I never thought 10 years ago when I started this that would get listeners from international. Like I've had people reach out that's like it's international, and it's just because the person that I interviewed has a fan base that comes in from different areas. And so it is very interesting how this grows, this develops, this snowballs. I can tell you from doing this so much, my son now is like, does Dada need to go do podcast? And I'm like, yes, Dada does. And when we go on drives too, now it's like he knows that some of these people that I interview have storefronts. And so he'll be like, did you interview that person? Like pointing at different stores. And I'm like, well, Dad did this one. And then we're talking to this person, or we'll reach out to this person. And so it's affected so much of a part of my life that I don't think I'll ever change, because I don't think I've had so much appreciation for who I am as a citizen of the community, but also just an interjection of like my own family's life. Like I feel like they have so much to be happy about and connected it with their lives as well. So I love podcasting for so many reasons, but yeah, having a connection through my son is definitely a big one for that.
Great. Yeah. That's exciting.
Before I forget, let everyone know what the podcast name is and what goes into it on for the next episode. If you have an upcoming one that you're going to be doing, I would love to hear it.
Yes, it's the Longevity Protocol, and it's definitely about living the well-lived life, health, happiness. We talk about sex and sexuality, and as relationships, we get a lot into that, and all the things that would be impacting your ability to live long and live well. And our next episode, in fact, will be, well, there's one on if you are married, do you live longer? And it's an interesting answer. It's an interesting answer.
Yeah.
And another one would be coming up.
Alcohol.
Oh yeah. Does alcohol
have health benefits?
Or does it extend your life, or detriments? And what is that all about? And where's a little bit of the research with that? We always have some level of research, and I kind of dork out a little bit that way. And Cristina brings a lot of levity. She's far more clever and funnier than me. But we have that sort of yin and yang kind of concept that we bring to the podcast.
Yeah.
And then the other one.
About moderation, the ones that are coming up.
Yeah, the ones that are coming up. We just filmed a few of them.
Oh, nice.
Living is moderation the way to go when it comes to all of this and health and life, but definitely with health and medicine and how we approach that, should it be done moderately? And really, frankly, we'll let the listeners know too. We do believe it is moderate, and that's a lot of what we've been talking about today. This idea of meeting the patient where they're at. We're not extremely militant in our approach. We're factual, and we'll be frank for their sake, but we're meeting the patient where they're at. And certain, whether they're doctors conventionally or even in the alternative world, they can be a little bit strict about saying this is the way and this is the only way and that's it. And we just don't approach it that way. You got to meet the human.
I mean, we always say the best that we can hope to be is inspirational. Like I talk to my daughters about that all the time when they're fighting amongst themselves. And I'll say, you can't change your sister's behavior. The only thing you can do is lead by example and hope that you inspire.
Yes.
I would say that's the summary of our podcast. We try to take conversations that are perhaps technically more difficult, that are based in health and medicine, and we want to dissect them for the average listener so that they're understandable, again, implementable. What are things that they can learn from us that they can take little steps that accumulate to make big impactful changes in their life, and a good dose of our own philosophy on how to live a well-lived life, which usually summarized by like be in love and love life and enjoy yourself a bit,
I love that. And I think that is so important. And I think it, like you said, it's kind of the center point of our conversation today, was just those little bit helps, and what you're trying to give to the audience is a digestible understanding wrapped around a question. So I think it's really great. And I think it's endless. It's boundless. You guys have so many opportunities. It's so many questions that you can answer, and kind of also when it gets long enough in the longevity part, like you guys have done over, if you do over a certain amount of episodes, what I've always found interesting is like you've answered some questions that overlap. And what you can do is be like an encyclopedia. Please see episode like and it's just there's so many opportunities for you to keep going and keep divulging information and keep providing different podcast elements that'll allow audiences to continue on with you, and from a question and answer standpoint especially. So this last part really is just for you guys to promote, because we are reaching the end of our 1 hour conversation. But I would love for you guys to let everyone know where they can find you online. If there's a phone number, email, anything that you want to divulge, maybe even an event that you will be participating in, please let everyone know. The floor is yours. Go right ahead.
Well, great. And I really want to thank you for this. This has been a fantastic conversation. I really love your style and how you go about the whole thing.
And the depth of the questions.
Yeah,
thank you.
Themes of the questions, I think, are really beautiful.
Very, very much so. So everyone can find us right here in Scottsdale, Arizona at hormone-zone.com. So the name of our private practice is the Hormone Zone, and that's where we practice. And again, we have some other associate physicians, and so there's other people that have been trained in the way we've been practicing for the past 18 years. Yes. Again, the name of the podcast is the Longevity Protocol Podcast. They can find that, of course, on Spotify and on Apple, the usual suspects. We're also on YouTube, so we always film all of our podcasts, not unlike what you're doing here. So there's a visual as well as the audio side of it. Also on Linktree, and that's where they can really see many things. Linktree at the Longevity Protocol Pod, and that's got all different things. We've been doing a lot in terms of podcasts like yours, and we've been doing a lot of different articles that have been out and different things. Just getting the word out about longevity and living the well-lived life.
And of course, on Instagram at the Sex Docs.
Oh, at the Sex Docs, yeah. So,
awesome.
And we didn't get too much into that side of it, but definitely a big part of what we do, because it is hormones. Inevitably, patients are asking about their sexual wellness, and we have lots of relationships and how that all relates back to their entire health, and we talk about that all the time. So Instagram at the Sex Docs.
Yes. And I figured too, we talk a little bit about everything, the overarching umbrella, just because if we get into specifics, we could be here for multiple episodes and I have no doubt that you guys have a plethora of episodes that people can seek out if they're looking for more. And so I encourage everyone, go check out the Longevity Protocol, and please, go check out the Sex Docs on Instagram. And also, just if you're really, really wanting to pull the trigger and just see them in person over in Scottsdale, go do so. And last but not least, we do have an outro for our podcast. FindingArizonaPodcast.com is where you'll find every single episode. Finding Arizona Podcast under all social media is where you'll find us. And last but not least, we say kisses, hugs, and belly rubs to our four-legged friends, and we will see you next time.